There's a question historians rarely ask out loud. Not how people were executed in the Middle Ages, but why it took so long. Because if the goal was simply death, it could have been fast. A blade, a rope, done. But that's not what they chose. What they designed was something else entirely. Something that required skill, planning, and a disturbing level of expertise in human suffering. This is Savage Century, and today we're going inside 5 of the most deliberately painful methods of execution in medieval history. Not myths, not legends. Documented, recorded, and in many cases, witnessed by thousands. Why pain was the point. Before we talk about the methods, we need to understand the logic. Because there was logic. Medieval Europe operated on a principle that modern societies have largely abandoned. Pain was not a side effect of punishment. It was the purpose. Theologians believed suffering purified the soul. Jurists believed it matched the weight of the crime. Rulers believed it sent a message no written law could match. 3 different justifications, 1 result. And it was considered spiritually necessary in the case of religious crimes. The idea that the body had to burn so the soul might be saved was not fringe theology. It was official doctrine. The Constitutio Criminalis Carolina, the criminal code of the Holy Roman Empire, issued in 1532, legally mandated specific forms of torture and execution based on the category of crime. This wasn't chaos. It was bureaucracy. And understanding that makes what comes next far more disturbing. Method 1. Hanged, drawn, and quartered. In medieval England, there was a sentence reserved exclusively for men convicted of high treason. And it was not 1 punishment. It was 4. The condemned was first hanged, but not until death. Until the edge of it. Then drawn. Disemboweled while still alive, his organs removed and burned in front of him. Then beheaded. And finally quartered, his body cut into 4 parts, sent to different corners of the kingdom. Not buried, displayed. The first recorded use of this sentence in England dates to 1241 against William Maurice, convicted of piracy. But its most famous application came in 1305. Sir William Wallace, the Scottish knight that popular culture has romanticized, but whose real death was far more brutal than any film has shown. Dragged through London's streets behind a horse. Hanged. Emasculated. Disemboweled. Beheaded. His head was placed on London Bridge. His limbs were sent to Newcastle, Berwick, Stirling, and Perth, 1 to each corner of the rebellious north. The English crown wasn't hiding this. They were announcing it. Historian Caroline Walker Bynum notes that the deliberate fragmentation of the corpse carried deep symbolic weight. Denying the condemned a complete body for resurrection was, in that theological context, a form of eternal punishment. The execution wasn't just ending a life. It was attempting to erase a soul. Method 2. The breaking wheel. If hanging, drawing, and quartering was England's answer to treason, the breaking wheel was the instrument of choice across continental Europe for a far wider range of crimes. And what made it so feared wasn't just the pain, it was the control. Imagine you are strapped to a large wooden frame, arms spread, legs extended. You cannot move. The executioner approaches, not with a blade, but with a heavy iron-rimmed wheel, and he starts at your shins. The sequence was deliberate. A skilled executioner could keep a person alive and conscious for hours, even an entire day, simply by working from the extremities inward, avoiding the organs until the very end. In France, the practice was so standardized that 2 distinct sentences existed. La rue par en bas, from the legs upward. The slower version, reserved for the worst crimes. La rue par en haut, beginning with a blow to the chest or head. Slightly more merciful, the court specified which. The court specified which. The 1589 execution of Peter Stump in Cologne, convicted of murder and witchcraft, was accompanied by red-hot pincers tearing his flesh before the wheel was even applied. Contemporary chronicles, including the pamphlet A True Discourse published that same year, describe crowds gathered to watch. The wheel remained in legal use in France until 1791. In Germany, until the early 19th century, this was not a relic of the Dark Ages. It was institutional, recent, documented. Method 3. Pressing Peine Forte at Dure. This one is different from the others, because it wasn't designed to punish a guilty person. It was designed to force someone to speak. In English common law, a defendant who refused to enter a plea, who refused to say guilty or not guilty, could not be tried. The courts couldn't proceed. So they developed a solution. Peine Forte at Dure. Strong and hard punishment. You are laid flat on the stone floor of your cell. A wooden board is placed on your chest. And then the stones begin, one at a time. The weight increases slowly, over hours, sometimes days, while you are given the bare minimum of food and water to stay alive. The goal is simple. Say one word. Guilty or not guilty. Just one word, and it stops. Some held out and died. The most documented case is Giles Corey, pressed to death in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692, a later example, but under the exact same English legal tradition. His reported last words as the stones crushed him. More weight. In England, the practice appears as early as 1406 and was formally used until 1772. John Langbein, in his landmark study Torture and the Law of Proof, 1977, documents how pressing occupied a unique legal gray area. It was technically not torture under English law, because torture required a royal warrant. This was classified as process. The system had a word for everything, including this. Method 4. Burning at the stake. Of all the methods in this episode, this one has the most extensive historical record, because it was used for centuries, across most of Europe, by both secular courts and the church. And it was public by design. Burning served a theological function that other execution methods did not. Fire was understood as purifying. The destruction of the body by flame was meant, in the language of the Inquisition, to prevent the spread of heresy, to destroy what the church considered a corrupted vessel. But here is what the crowd watching rarely understood. The manner of death varied enormously. If the wood was dry and the fire built correctly, unconsciousness from smoke inhalation could come relatively quickly. But if the wood was green, if the fire burned slowly from the feet upward, if the wind scattered the smoke away from the face, the person could remain fully conscious as the flames climbed. This was not speculation. It was documented. The execution of John Huss in 1415, the Czech theologian condemned by the Council of Constance for heresy, was witnessed and recorded by Poggio Bracciolini, a papal secretary present that day. His account describes Huss singing prayers as the fire was lit. Between 1400 and 1530, the Spanish Inquisition alone carried out hundreds of burnings of living persons and in effigy for those who had escaped or already died. Historian Henry Charles Lee, in his 3-volume A History of the Inquisition of the Middle Ages, 1888, compiled the most comprehensive primary source record of these proceedings available in English. The numbers are staggering. The documentation is meticulous. And that combination, bureaucratic precision applied to mass burning, is perhaps the most disturbing element of all. Method 5. Flaying. The last method on this list is the rarest, and arguably the most viscerally horrifying. Flaying. The removal of skin from a living person. It appears in medieval records primarily as a punishment for betrayal, for those considered to have shed the skin of loyalty. The symbolism was intentional and brutal. The clearest medieval European documentation of flaying as deliberate punishment comes from Byzantine and Scandinavian sources. The Byzantine Emperor Basil II, following his defeat of the Bulgarian army at the Battle of Kleidion in 1014, blinded approximately 15,000 Bulgarian prisoners, leaving one eye to every 100th man so they could lead the others home. Contemporary chronicles indicate that additional mutilations, including flaying of selected prisoners, followed. In Norse law texts, specifically the Gragas, the Icelandic law code, skin-taking is referenced in the context of extreme punishment for outlawry, and the practice appears in hagiographic accounts of Christian martyrs. Saint Bartholomew is traditionally depicted being flayed alive, though these accounts are devotional, not forensic records. What the historical record makes clear is this: flaying was known, referenced, and in specific contexts of absolute power, Byzantine, Mongol, medieval European, it was applied, not as uncontrolled violence, as a deliberate statement. Because in those contexts, the message was the method, 5 methods. 5 different legal systems, theological frameworks, political contexts, and one thread running through every single one: intentionality. None of this was accidental. It was architected, refined, repeated. The medieval world didn't stumble into cruelty. It organized it. And perhaps that's the detail that stays with you after this video ends. Not the pain itself, but the paperwork. The fact that somewhere, in a court record, a royal decree, an inquisitorial archive, someone wrote down exactly how long it should take and signed their name to it. This is savage century. If this episode unsettled you, that's exactly the point. Subscribe, because history is far more deliberate than you've been told. And leave a comment. Which of these 5 methods do you think reveals the most about the society that created it? I'll see you in the next one.